All right, so sometimes to me, the smartest real estate moves aren't necessarily the loudest ones. And when it comes to the Wellen Park, interesting master plan area they carved out in the southern Venice, Florida area, exploded over the last few years, to say the least. But a lot of folks I talk to are still stuck on some of these neighborhoods that were in vogue, maybe the back half of 2021, 2022, et cetera. While there might be a new one, more low-key, that has kind of snuck into the conversation that's about to release in the next few months, that could be one of the more strategic options, I think, in the entire area in Q4 2025 on to 2026. With that being said, today I want to break down a brand new gated community in the southern Sarasota County market, and that is called Oakbend. If we have not met, my name is Adam Hancock. I run a full-service residential real estate brokerage called the Sunshine State Company, and we focus exclusively on trying to be, the smartest way to buy, sell, and/or invest, like our slogan says, but especially when it comes to relocation and new construction across Southwest Florida. We do this through intentional, content-driven, analytical kind of items like you see here, not just telling you necessarily what's good, but why it might be good and who it is actually good for potentially. So it's all about context. So whether you're relocating from out of state, out of country, you're making a lifestyle pivot, or just trying to make sense of this convoluted Florida market in 2025, today's video will hopefully give you a clearer, less nuanced view of what Oakbend at Wellen Park has to offer. And if I can assist you, of course, with any of your needs, please consider reaching out. Without further ado, let's hop in. Okay, so let's kick off the video with my always favorite category, and that's geography. Where exactly is Oakbend? And I want to speak to, two parties. One, maybe you've never been in the area at all, you don't know what any of this means. And I also want to speak to people that have been maybe researching Wellen Park before it even had that name since its inception when it was just the West Villages. Oakbend is located in what I would argue is one of the most valuable pockets of the entire Playmore District. And the Playmore District is the most valuable pocket, at least as it exists today, of all of Wellen Park. So it's a layered approach. And what they do, like they've done in every area basically since the beginning of time, is they go into the newer district and they start building everything out. And then eventually the stuff that comes behind it starts to go in the fringes. And it gains some value, it loses some value depending on who you are, right? If you get further from the downtown, you might get closer to the beaches. If you go west, something like that. But that's how basically you start here, just like you move to Sarasota, you build the beaches, and then you go out east, same kind of idea. Well, in contrast to that, kind of like they did with the Waterside District in Lakewood Ranch, is this one, they did go on the fringes. At Palmyra, you have the Lennar Golf communities going south. You have the new Taylor Morrison Esplanade community that's going south as well. They carved out this little sliver right in the middle that maybe gives you the best location in entirety if you want to enjoy Wellen Park for Wellen Park reasons. Because you're just north, just a slight north of CoolToday Park. That's the Brave Spring Training Facility, which not just, even if you're not a baseball fan, year-round open tiki bar, a ton of live events come with the stadium infrastructure like that. So that's really nice. You're slightly south of downtown Wellen. That's the new suburban downtown district. So that's the cosmopolitan district that allows you to no longer have to run into the downtown of the town, which most historic value is based on. So if you have your own downtown you come home to, and then you also have that option, then it adds value to this location on its own outright. And then you're right near just the Wellen Park core infrastructure itself. So it adds walking and biking district distance to a lot of stuff, which is incredibly rare in the state of Florida. It's not hard to drive a short distance to stuff, but to walk, we don't really have a ton of that, especially in the suburbs. Restaurants, concerts, you have baseball, like I mentioned, you have trails, farmers markets, etc. And then on top of all of that, this is where I find the most value in using a community that's individual, which maybe has no context to you, to explain the value of a value on top of value on top of value approach. It's a great way to learn a town. What I think you need is, the area of that circle on a map as it exists through entire metro. So what is Venice to Sarasota? And then once you say, okay, I'm picking Venice or Western Northport or Northern Angle, wherever you end up in Wellen, then you say, like, how valuable am I against the other communities, right? Because all the communities are going to have a similar proximity to stuff once they get near each other. So then you get into nuanced conversations like that. Once you say, like, okay, this is really valuable to Wellen Park, well, then on top of that, you are less than 9.5 miles to 4 separate beaches. So you have Manasota Key, because of the southern location here. That's the Englewood Beach directly to your west. That's like 8.9 miles-ish. It's under 9, depending on who's driving, or depending on the day. And then you're 9.5 northwest to Venice Island, which is the town of the town. And that have Venice Beach, Casperson Beach, which is the Shark's Tooth Beach, and then Brohard, which is the only dog beach in the county. So you got all that. So it's interesting to both those items. So great Venice proposition. And then you add to that, you're like, okay, 27 miles to Siesta Key, about 32 to downtown Sarasota, so you don't necessarily lose that. If you get that dangerous on the interstate, Lakewood Ranch is in the cards, Central Sarasota as well. So to move to the state of Florida and to get all of that is what I'd be at least trying to start at and then just working my way back. And that's why I think right now that Oakbend is really interesting from a usability standpoint when it comes to geography. That's why I go so hard in that direction. And that you can enjoy all those benefits. And because what I'm going to talk about in the rest of the video about the boutique infrastructure, about just what they're going to do here, you basically go into a district, they already did some of the dirty work. So you're not going to have as many of these years and years and years of all these roads and stuff like that, because they already had to do all of that to build the communities that are actually going to be further from the amenities than this one. So if that makes sense, that's why I like it from a location standpoint. And let's hop into some more detail. Okay, the next thing that makes the community of Oakbend really interesting to me is just its scale. Think small gated enclave. So we're talking just, right now the plan is like 181 total lots. And that might not sound like a major deal, just depending on your particular background. In the Florida new construction world, especially in the Sarasota-Manatee County part of Southwest Florida, 500 to 1,500 home developments is not like a rarity. And that creates a very different living experience, because if you're gonna go 1,500 homes and it's not 2020 where there's like then you might have a 10, 12 year build out. So just think about the way that materializes, think about the uncertainty of you're in phase one, it's like there's goods and bads to all of that. So fewer homes to me and to you means less traffic, it means less potential strain on the communal amenities, it means more predictability of the build out like I mentioned. One of the big things is if you do like these two builders, right, you might be in a 8 to 15 month build potentially. What you don't want, and we've all been there, right? New always feels great. A chain restaurant that's brand new is nice. 5 years later, you go into that community, you're like, this didn't age well. So the best way to sink your money in something is to have, when you sign and when it's finished, as a total community, the best idea of what it might look like. So more predictability in a build out of 181 total lots that some are gonna be quick moving on top of that, I think is interesting. And then just more intimacy, more quietness once the dust settles. So in practical terms, in a nutshell, you won't have hundreds of new construction trucks running for as many years. You won't be sharing the clubhouse with 1,100 of your neighbors. And you'll have a relatively good idea of what your neighborhood might look like when everything is said and done. And in 2025, that alone makes Oakbend really stand out when it comes to the Wellen Park conversation. Okay, now I want to break down the builders, homes available, things like that. So if any of this sounds interesting so far, you could say, okay, like is housing criteria going to ruin it for me? Or am I getting more excited as we go here? And then this is going to be important for release timing and things like that. So first off, there's a couple things that I like here. So one, high level summary, you have Toll Brothers and you have ICI. So we've seen ICI at Palmyra. So that's a good example because they're a little bit ahead. And Toll Brothers, the Isles in Lakewood Ranch, Monterey, the new one in Lakewood Ranch, Solstice, which they built in this district just right across the way that started a few years ago. I view Toll Brothers, at least in this town, as one of the highest end builds you could do if you didn't want to go custom. They're not doing semi-custom stuff really anymore. They used to a little bit, but like Toll Brothers and Homes by Town, and maybe some like Medallions products are like really, really nice without having to go Pinterest board level. ICI, you can go that level. Like we had a customer that did one at Palmyra, and absolutely beautiful. You can like design every nook and cranny, and it a lot of times isn't going to cost the same that it would in Lakewood Ranch even, let alone like North or Naples proper or something like that. So that's your two builders. So I really like that mix. And there's nothing below them right now, at least announced. Now, of the 181 lots, it looks to be a pretty even split. I'll try to show the map here. I have the updated Toll Brothers one, but it looks to be a pretty even spread. And then even like where they put them in the community. It's gonna be really nice. I mean, it's not gonna be like every other home, but a lot of the interior and some of the exterior Toll Brothers has. So a lot of homes on water. I mean, it's not the Gulf of Mexico, but like it's a decent sized lake. A lot of nice little curves. And what Toll Brothers does with a lot of its rear lots is it's not just like every lot's, this wide. You almost have to go lot by lot, but you can get some sneaky large sizes in some of these Toll Brothers lots. So like the more variety there is to the street shape and stuff like that might fishtail some of these rear lots. If you want to do a pool, you just want more space, things like that. And then they'll have whole sections of the street that are like ICI and then Toll. So there's gonna be a really nice variety across the board to me. And I like where the amenities are located within the community as well. Now what's interesting about, if we just start with Toll Brothers, They're saying right now just like 5 total floor plans is all they're going to release. They almost in the past go like overwhelming amount of plans you can do. They have these big screens in their community centers that you can like look at everything, but they've had a lot of floor plans. They're supposed to just go 5 here. And like they've done in Venice in the past and similar to Solstice is a little bit more no frills. So for good and bad, it's going to be like, it is what it is. So you have the schooner, the cove, the sandbar, the tidal, and the windlass in that order of size. Starting out, you're gonna have 2,100 to just over 3,000 square feet at the base. There's not gonna be a base right now planned to be less than 2,100 square feet, which there is in Solstice, if you did like the floor or something like that. All 2-car garages with potentially the ability to take to a 3-car tandem, but these aren't the widest lots in the world, so that could be a deal breaker for certain people. And then normal stuff, all gonna have 3+ bedrooms, all gonna have 2+ bathrooms. And based on what they've done in the past with like Solstice and stuff, you've seen like still today, there's like quick move-ins in the 2,100 to over 3,000 square foot range from like 650 to 850, 900 spec'd out, where a lot of people's experience with Toll, even the small collections, like at the Isles were in the 9s. So just food for thought there. They have 2-story and single-story options like normal, like they always have, and pricing in much more detail is including like quick move-in, inventory list, timelines, stuff like that we will have very shortly here, depending on when you're watching this video. So please reach out in that respect and let's talk about the other builder. All right, and then when it comes to Oakbend, that's just gonna give you another tier of flexibility, of size, location within the community. So here you could cross into the 4+ bedrooms, same with the bathrooms. Here you could get the 3-car garage, front facing. You could go over the 3,800 plus square foot range here. That's the way to look at them. And if you just want custom, like, 5 floor plans, especially, it's not like a Monterey you go and you could get real dangerous with Toll, but you come in here and there's 5 total floor plans. You like everything else I said in the entire video, and it just doesn't work. Like that's very possible that's going to happen to you. But this is probably going to be more of like a price category thing too. So they, in Palmyra, my guess of what they're going to do here, it's not public knowledge yet, but I think you're probably going to have a low 8s maybe starting, maybe potentially even creeps into the high 700Ks. And then you can get real dangerous with something super nicely built out, pool, everything. Probably, I don't even know if it'll take you 1.4 in here. So that's just my guess right now, based on what they've done in the past and how big you go and all that kind of stuff. But if you put that in perspective, I mean, there's a lot of communities in Lakewood Ranch that, again, it's the 1.2, the 1.3, the 1.4 with the pool are not custom builders. So just food for thought if you wanted to blend, you wanted to really maximize new construction in an innovative way, complementing a historic beach town in a newer district. You're kind of on the forefront of where I think things are going to continue to go once more people get their head around that this isn't the Venice of the old. Okay, now I want to hit lifestyle and amenities a little bit more. So despite being, a smaller boutique outfit, Oakbend doesn't necessarily skip the stuff that most people would want from a private amenity standpoint. So you're still going to have the resort style pool, fitness center, clubhouse, pickleball courts, dog park, and playground, in addition to the really nice access to Wellen Park's trail system. It's like 30+ miles. So when you come home, you have a low density amount of private amenities that you're only sharing with 181 other lots potentially. In my experience, especially in this part of Florida, a lot of people don't use the communal amenities, so it's not like everyone's at these pools all the time, but it doesn't take a lot to make it a unpleasant experience if that's not necessarily what you're looking for, and I could totally see that being an issue with the demographic moving to this particular area. So that's within the community, but then on top of that, I went so hard on the location, and a lot of that is because of the off-campus amenity availability as well that really adds to the day-to-day life. So one of the reasons to choose a new construction community, but not in a silo, choose a new construction community that's part of a longer term intentional plan, is that all of these folks can buy different price ranges, different timelines. Like, you don't all have to like the same house for the same reasons, but then can come together for some larger communal amenities, and that is downtown Wellen CoolToday Park. So if you're not completely familiar, I'm not gonna get crazy here, but I just wanna mention some of it. So of course you're gonna have the shop and boutique atmosphere. You have like a 2-mile lake that loops around. Drinks, dining, you have Oak and Stones in here. It's like a craft beer, wood fire pizza place. Foxtail Coffee, which is has opened multiple locations. They have one in Lakewood Ranch as well. There's a Italian steakhouse. You have gourmet ice cream. So you kind of get the idea here. Banyan House is another full-service restaurant bar. There's a gastropub in here. They have a place called The Yard, which is like outdoor food truck style setup, rotating vendors. So that's kind of a cool aesthetic. And then entertainment lifestyle, there is a hall that they'll do events, concerts, yoga, community stuff like that. Grand Lake, like I mentioned, you can kayak and paddleboard on this one, and it has a boardwalk. Yoga lawn, there's splash pad, bike rentals, and non-motorized watercraft rentals. And then, of course, year-round events and the additional trails, things like that. So, again, I like the double element, where in the past, some of the communities that were first released in this district, I think they really thought that people wouldn't value the amenities as much, and they would really overvalue downtown Wellen. But they've kind of peeled that back a little bit. Of people still do want to not play pickleball in a public environment that you have to reserve and all that kind of stuff. They still want maybe their own neighborhood pool in addition to the ones that they could go take a short drive to. They don't want to pay $300-400 a month for the infrastructure of a community in a non-gated way without amenities, which is true in some cases. So I think this just strikes a nice balance. Okay, now that we've gotten through some of the nitty-gritty, let's talk about, in my opinion, who the community of Oakbend might actually be a good fit for. So I'm going to kind of rattle them off. In one situation, I think people relocating from out of state who want a more luxurious environment, but also the low's not too low and the high's not too high. You're not in a crazy high-end custom that hasn't really hit Venice yet, so you're nervous about putting too much money in an area that hasn't been that historically, but then also you're not building at $1.5 million where there's $200,000 villas necessarily as well, so you kind of have that blend of the two. Number two, I think buyers who maybe feel like they missed out on the original release of the Solstice, the other Toll Brothers community, or just a square peg in a round hole. It looks like there's, like, maybe you missed out on Abilene, you missed out on Solstice, but then you look and you say, it seems like there's a bunch of options. Like, I'm going to be fine. But when you start to get into them, you see that it's a lot of peacocks. You have Wisteria, that's very niche. It wouldn't probably fit this buyer. Sam Rogers is a unique custom. Palmera has like a mixed builder environment. So when you start to go about them, and if you love this one, there might not be two or three that you're really comparing necessarily. And maybe this one coming gives you an opportunity where previously you've seen all the options, you didn't like them. Three, I think empty nesters who want value, who value peace and privacy, but still want walkability. Four, I do think there's a family element. I was in the Isles community up in Lakewood Ranch for similar reasons, but I think if you want the level of house that sits there, you're excited about the school districts, you want to raise your kids in a more laid-back, beach-centered area, but you don't necessarily want to go to the most kid-friendly neighborhood on purpose just because you're trying to guarantee a demographic. You're coming from maybe 5,500 square feet and a 3,200 square foot, like really high-end Toll Brothers, more affordable version of custom ICI kind of fits the mold where luxury housing with a family and stuff is an odd bird a little bit in Sarasota just because of what Sarasota is. So I see that come up a lot if you're sitting in that price range of maybe $950 to $1.5. So I think that's one. And then second home buyers, low-hanging fruit that want security and ease. You have a lot less products in here. If you're not spending a big part of the year here, you're probably going to be a lot more close-knit to your neighbors. There's a lot of neighborhood or kind of home watch services in that area. So I like all of that. And I view this as kind of that hybrid product that doesn't require you to compromise community scale, the location, or the build quality all at the same time. Okay, and then kind of on the other side of the coin, just to be fair, devil's advocate wise, who might Oakbend not be right for? I see a couple things potentially. One, timeline and uncertainty could come up. You have a release that's going to be late Q3, maybe Q4. You have Toll Brothers and ICI as well. So, you're probably talking, if you signed in October, it's not gonna be done in December. You're mid 2026 to late 2026, probably your actual move-in timeline. So does that still excite you? You also have undetermined exact HOA and CDD fees in a lot of these newer communities. So if you're like, I want to get down there and do something like that, then the stage we're at might not be ideal. It could totally be a builder thing. ICI is going to be more on that custom size, and then Toll Brothers is Toll Brothers. If neither one of those works, obviously it's a non-starter. That's not a difficult conversation. But it's going to be a price range thing as well, and then it's going to be a style. Toll Brothers has come in to the Venice area, and they've tried to like do a Venice product a lot of times. So people have viewed their Lakewood Ranch offerings at the Isles and Monterey, at least from a home perspective, higher end. They've done more, bigger, wider, things like that. And in Solstice, they didn't necessarily do that. It's a really, really nice product, but they've gone for more of like, not affordability in like the world's scheme, but they haven't leaned over to like almost custom like pricing, which they have done in Lakewood Ranch at times. So if you're on these fringe of like 6, 7, 800K, it might be awkward. You might be trying to jam something into not a natural fit to what that builder is right now. And ICI might maybe be off the table. So that would be an automatic deal breaker. I think the size of the community, like I've been playing up the boutique thing a lot. That's not for everybody. You might want something bigger. You might want a restaurant. You might want something that's not going to come with, this is going to be normal. It's going to be, I mean, they've done, like Toll Brothers has done this at every community. It's basically Toll and then ICI jumping on top. They do pretty normal amenities, so not everyone that has a house over $1 million is like, thinks they're enough for them necessarily based on what they've built in the past. So I can see that coming up. And then of course it's just like, I would always start with, I mean, not only Venice, but Wellen Park. Like, this isn't even a conversation. You should by no means be like going to see what Oakbend looks like if you don't even know you want to drive to Venice. So the best way to do it would be really to say, what is Lakewood Ranch versus Venice as part of town? And then Central Sarasota is in the middle, like on the I-75 parallel to Siesta Key Lane. That's really your big kind of 3 areas you're most likely going to end up ideally. Everything else offshoots from there. And then if you're like, okay, I don't mind going south of Sarasota city limits to cross over into Nokomis, Osprey, hit that Venice area, then it really is like, is Wellen Park too far south? Maybe you should flirt with like the beach walks of the world to see if you want to be closer to the beach. So you want to be 2.5 miles instead of 9 miles. And so then it becomes like what is Wellen Park to Venice? And then using new construction to figure all that out is a fantastic way to go. So if Oakbend's interesting, you should use it to figure out location. And then once you open up location, you probably have 4 or 5 other communities that potentially, like if you came to me and I love this one model at Toll Brothers that I saw on Oakbend's website, then I could tell you the one at Palmyra, the one at Everly, the resale options, alternatives to that. I could tell you the differences of what that would mean versus the waterside district of Lakewood Ranch, which is like basically the size of the Playmore district of Wellen Park. So just that little bit of a mountain out of a molehill. So that's why I'm so focused on the order in which you do these things, and that's why maybe I talk about new construction breakdowns different than like home tours necessarily, because that's my experience is that this could be too convoluted. Like this could actually be less helpful than anything if geography is not figured out first. So that's how I'd sum that up. And then as I finally digress here, my take going in to late July 2025 on Oakbend is that, it hasn't been the most publicized or dramatic launch in Wellen Park's history, but when you zoom out and you look at what it offers, the walkable location, you have the gated privacy, you have 2 high-end builders, low density, it's full of amenities in and out. It starts to look like a community that could age well, I think, and and it's gonna age quicker. The barrier to entry is lower than your Wild Blues of the world in Lakewood Ranch, where like you're not even talking to anyone for less than 1.8. It's gonna be more peaceful than some of the communities that are going to just jam like 5 or 6 builders into one community and have all these evolutions of phases. It's more central than some future launches are ever going to be by River Road, and it's more flexible than the one builder only subdivision. So to me, if you're someone that's thinking long term, you're someone who wants to make a smart bet before the next pricing cycle hits, when buyers actually have a little bit of leverage for once in a long, long time, this might be a community really worth watching. All right, my friends, that is a wrap for today's neighborhood breakdown. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, my name is Adam Hancock. If you liked the video, you're not subscribed to the channel here, please consider doing so. Just the best way to see what's coming next. We have a lot of like very micro stuff like this, individual areas. So if you're like deeper down the search and you're trying to figure out what to do, community versus each other, we have stuff like that. But we're also talking higher level, the market as a whole, should you even make a decision right now? And then, in between all of that, lists of Sarasota versus Tampa, neighborhoods in general, more macro, middle of the road approaches as well. Subscribing is the best way to see what is coming next. And if timeline is important to you, then please consider doing so. Of course, if me and my team can assist you with any of your residential real estate needs, you're coming to town, you want to look at stuff, I think it's really important, even if you're 2 years out, to have early conversations. The right conversation at the right time can make your whole independent search process so much more efficient. Versus like, I know how difficult it is to try to move across the country and just have no context for anything you're seeing, and then almost everything that you find adds more complexity to the whole conversation. So 3 years out, don't feel bad. Please consider calling, and then if you end up coming down and working out, then that's typically, we're just playing a long-term karma approach to that whole thing through the real estate brokerage combined with the YouTube channel. Contact information is everywhere. And then lastly, the sunshinestateco.com is kind of my main hub for everything. So we have written word versions of the videos, we have audio versions of the videos, we have relocation guides that you can download or just do a browser-based flip book. We have a really nice 30-day, super comprehensive email, like a single email instead of a bunch of random stuff that is just a manifesto of information related to the market. If you're curious about that, you can even reach out and say, hey, can you send me last month so I can see what it looks like, things like that. But again, my name is Adam Hancock. Thank you guys so much for taking any of your time to consume my content. We'll see you on the next one.